I mean, the fact that we know that it's down means there's people watching the stream, which is cool, and that's nice. Okay, should be back up. Okay, so cool, thank you for the update on that. Yeah, and workshop ideas. Feel free to propose. Anything else? Anybody want to bring up anything before we move on? Do news, all that kind of stuff? No? Everybody good? Awesome. Okay. So, news for tonight. I need a co-host again. I miss having a co-host. So if anybody wants to like start co-hosting with me, that would be great because I feel like I'm just doing my day job. Like I might have had class at 8 o'clock this morning. Some of you might have been in that class. It's been a long day. So stuff. The Japanese government said, hey, we're concerned about all the IoT hacking that's been going on and the creation of these massive botnets. So they said, you know what? On all the IPs allocated to our country, we're going to scan those for potentially vulnerable IoT devices and try to do something about it. The citizens, when they heard about it, were none too pleased because it seems a bit invasive, right? Your government essentially offering you a free pen test of your IoT devices. They said, well, why don't you just send out a notice or an alert to people? Raise your hands in this room if you think sending out at the regular consumer a notice that their IoT device is insecure is going to accomplish anything. If you're on the stream, nobody put their hand up. So yeah, I mean, I get people's concerns, but at the same time, they have a point. If you just tell users, hey, your like home thermostat potentially has a vulnerability because it's running Telnet, but you're, I don't know. People might not care. They might not.
Could you scroll up and down a bit? I'm not sure if it feeds, if it's working or not, or if it's just like a dead video right now.
Okay, there. Maybe they'll see something.
Yeah, nothing's changing. I think.
Yeah, it's just
it lags. It's like a few seconds behind.
Nothing's moved.
Oh,
Seconds now, so.
crud.
Oh,
No, see, it says log. There, it just went. Yeah, it moved. He said be patient.
it's just not like it. It's like, 10 and 12, 15 seconds.
Yeah. So anyways, if they go ahead and do that, interesting. Maybe other countries will follow suit. I mean, Sheridan's doing this for all of us for free anyways. So, yeah. But the fact that a government wants to do it because they recognize that these things are a serious source of vulnerabilities and potential threat to the rest of the internet is interesting. Curious to see where that goes and what they generate as a result of that. This one. So Google wants to enable device encryption for underpowered devices that are running Android. So if you are not currently aware, the reason that like phones and laptops and stuff that might run Android or other OSs, the reason they can do disk encryption so quickly is that they run CPUs that have built-in hardware instructions or some sort of other onboard component that supports things like AES. So when you have hardware speed crypto, it doesn't really impact the performance of the device very much because like there are different orders of magnitude, like code versus like running hardware are different orders of magnitude in how fast they run, right? But they realize that there's potentially an issue, like maybe you want to have your smartwatch be, disk encrypted because for the little bit of flash storage that it has, or you've got like a really, really bare bones Android device, but you still want disk encryption. So how do they enable that? What they did was for those devices, they are offering a new service called Addentum? Sure, we're going to call it that, Addentum, which basically replaces the current use of AES with the Cha-Cha 20 stream cipher. So the idea is that the stream cipher kind of operates in real time on a stream of encrypted data and would encrypt it that way. That family of ciphers, the Cha-Cha ones, they have a pretty good track record. The random number generator inside BSD, for example, FreeBSD, I want to say, uses a variant of that for populating the /dev/u random number stream. So it's pretty solid. Yeah, so cool. Neat way of implementing it. Basically, it's a simpler algorithm, so it doesn't take as much performance and won't take as many resources for those underpowered devices. So if you do want to encrypt, they're offering you a way to do that. Cool, neat. Advances and actual implications of algorithm speed. Kind of cool, very neat. Yes. Neat theory on, so the Bezos thing. So if you maybe heard this past week, Jeff Bezos came out and wrote a blog post for AWS saying, hey, the National Enquirer has been trying to blackmail me because they have a bunch of my intimate text messages that I have sent to a romantic partner who is not my spouse. And his approach to dealing with this was basically having a public blog post and basically calling them out on it, which is the way a lot of people say you should fight that kind of blackmail, is by being open and talking about it. But that's not the part that this article is talking about. The part the article is interested in is how did they get the passwords that would have given someone access to the messages or pictures that were involved in these text streams. And currently the theory is that the other person involved in the communications may have had some of their credentials for services breached as a part of that collection 1 password dump that I think we talked about during the last session. It was allegedly part 1 of a series of credential dumps that were going to happen.
Was that the one that was supermassive?
Yeah, yeah. When there was supposed to be other parts. And I think that there was another article that I forgot to pull where they said they kind of figured out who that person might have been. But anyway, so their details appear to have been in that dump, and people think maybe someone scraping that dump or going through that might have discovered that, and sort of then did the chain of logins and data theft to then do that blackmail on Bezos, which is kind of interesting. So neat to see how all those pieces kind of come together, and the sort of I don't know, what would you call it, like secondary impact of data breaches like this. The idea that someone then logs in with the stolen and breached creds and uses that for blackmail operations and stuff like that. Became quite a big thing. That's just an interesting thing to note. That's the current theory anyways. Rob Graham, or Arrow to Rob, wrote a big blog post about that a couple days ago, or it might have been today, detailing why he thinks that is and pointing to some of the records and entries in that data breach. So interesting. I know a lot of people heard about this one, so this one's a bit dated now, but Apple's out with a patch for that FaceTime vulnerability that everybody was talking about, where if you made like a group call, well, first from your own device you would FaceTime somebody, but then really quickly you would add a third member to the FaceTime group call, and that third person would be your own device again. And apparently if you did that, it would turn on the other party's microphone, and they wouldn't know it. So you could hear them as part of this FaceTime call. That was the vulnerability. And a lot of people were freaking out because obviously that means someone could just kind of turn your phone into a hot mic without them being aware of that. And people were concerned obviously for like stalking and all kinds of personal things that could come up because of that. Anyways, Apple's out with a fix for it. So that's good. Updates are nice. We all want to do that. The proof of concept was pretty straightforward. Lots of people were demoing it within minutes of it hitting the internet, saying, yep, I verified it, it works, it's easy. So that's concerning that stuff like that happened. Apparently the person that discovered the bug was a high school student and their family when they were just kind of, making FaceTime calls to each other, and they found the bug and they found that it was repeatable. So I believe in the disclosure that high school student has gotten credit for finding the bug, which is awesome. I think the jury's still out on if they're actually going to give him a bug bounty for this. I haven't heard. I saw some people suggesting that they should. I just don't know what the result of that has been. But if you know, awesome, cool, tell me. Remember last time when we were talking about some lawmakers in the US being angry that the telcos were providing location data to bounty hunters? Apparently it happened again for like the 3rd time. This is not that, this is like a separate one from the last couple of these that we've talked about. It happened again. Awesome. So people are angry and upset about that. Obviously we don't like our location data being sold or shared just because we have smartphones. Yeah, so not great. Basically, it was all the same reactions as the last 2 times. People were upset. Telco's saying, well, we didn't really, we kind of knew, but, just ignore us. We're doing our thing. A piece of malware targeting Mac users where you would visit a website and it would sort of download this malicious software, but really this thing had multiple avenues of revenue generation for the bad guys. So the primary thing that this piece of malware started to do was mine a cryptocurrency that I hadn't heard of before, Koto, which is a privacy-focused cryptocurrency that apparently gets used in Japan a fair bit. But in addition to mining that in your browser and stuff, it would try to basically scrape cookies for other domains that may be contained in your browser data to see if you've been using any other cryptocurrency exchanges and other sites and try to steal currency that way. Also, it would just try to do some standard credit card number harvesting from you as well. Looking for cryptocurrency wallet keys if maybe you had like an offline web app or some sort of plugin that did that. And iPhone text messages of victims stored in iTunes backups. So like, it's just like a generic, I'm gonna try to make money off you somehow piece of malware targeting Mac users. So that's just a whole bunch of no good, all rolled into one package. So not great. Just an interesting piece of malware just because of the different ways of revenue generation that one sample was after. It's kind of neat in that way. Apparently a lot of airline systems for like in terminal, when you're at the desk, like maybe buying a new airline ticket or doing one of those types of upgrades or something like that, don't use HTTPS or SSL TLS to encrypt the transactions when they're on the spot buying tickets, which is not great because, as you may know, if you're on the same network as that machine and the purchase isn't made over an encrypted connection, then other users on the same network can see that and sniff that and harvest that information. Probably the one saving grace is that you have to be on the network with those payment systems, and you probably shouldn't be on there in the first place. So yes, it's a potential vulnerability, but the likelihood is minimized. It's not like if you're just walking around the airport attached to random Wi-Fi that you're going to be picking up on people's ticket purchases, but still worth pointing out because dangerous. Computer science department at a university in California goofed and dumped a whole ton of student records into an email. So this is like a great use case for why you should test before you do mass mailouts. So I guess a sysadmin or some sort of admin was trying to sort of script the idea that each student would individually be mailed their grades. But instead of that, they mailed all the grades to like everybody. Yeah, that's a, yeah. By the way, this is awesome.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
Everybody who's fought their way through algorithms class should really feel some pain on that terrible pun.
It wasn't Sheridan, right?
Yeah, no, it was. Oh, crap, where'd I go? Cal Poly Pomona College of Science in California. I am unaware of this college, but that's what happened. So, like almost 4,600 active student records. Yikes. Intended to send its 940 students each a separate email containing their individual academic records. It seems that by accident, attached to the email was a spreadsheet containing basically everybody's stuff. Always test your mass mailouts. Always. Like, set up a couple dummy accounts first, just to see what you get as a recipient. Always. I have been burned by this. I've tried using like automated mailout software and stuff. I do mailouts for some of the security conferences, and we've gone through so many tools because of ones where you try to add everybody to BCC, but you like misclick and then it pushes everybody onto the to field instead of the BCC field. You know what it's like to get emails from like 200 security researchers who all just got to'd in an email instead of BCC'd? It pisses them off like a lot. Watch your BCC fields. This scared the hell out of me the other day because I use an Android. So apparently there was an error in the PNG parser in Android. So if you like texted somebody a really carefully crafted PNG file or put it in an email and then emailed it to someone and they opened it on their Android, you can get remote code execution by rendering a PNG file on an Android. Not great. I thought we were done with like graphics parsing remote code execution, but I guess not. Apparently there's some other stuff too they mentioned in here, like a Bluetooth phone and stuff like that, but the big one is in the graphics parser that was trying to parse image files, like pictures. That's brutal. Yep, anyways, so there's like a lot that got discussed in this, but that one was just brutal. It's terrifying knowing that someone could just text you a picture and that's it, there's your device compromised. So, yep. There are patches out, but as you may know, patching on Android is sometimes at the whim of your telco, unless it's the individual app, and the app can actually push out the patch instead for some reason, maybe the library that they're using or the way they're interfacing or showing the images. So yeah, not great. Oh, this one was like good and bad and all kinds of stuff. So, the CEO for Quadriga CX, which is a cryptocurrency exchange founded in Vancouver had their executive die, and they had the key to apparently $145 million worth of cryptocurrency assets. Someone did some math and said that like it's half of 1% of all the Ethereum that exists is now like lost, unless they can figure out how to crack this person's keys. It's the danger. It's not like you can print more crypto. There is a finite number of coins that will get minted for every individual cryptocurrency. So every time one is lost and not recoverable, that means that that coin is gone forever. It is taken out of circulation. So when someone dies and you can't get access to this stuff, like, whoa, that's brutal. There's starting to be a bunch of conspiracy theories popping up though around this. So like people saying, well, can we have proof that this person's dead and didn't just run off with all the money? So I used to use Quadriga because I used to do work for a couple of clients that would pay me in Bitcoin, and I held on to the Bitcoin for about 5 seconds, which was as long as it took me to just turn around and sell it on Quadriga and then just email money transfer myself the amount, because I didn't want my currency sitting in some exchange that I don't know. So because I had an account with them, I got an email saying, hey, by the way, Quadriga is now under administration and essentially being run by one of the big 4 accounting firms, because, I mean, when you owe your investors like 190 million Canadian, you can't pay that out. You don't have that much in assets. So essentially you get put under administration and a company tries to pay off your debts for you and stuff like that.
So I think the weird thing is why it's feeding the conspiracy theories is because 12 days before he died, he changed his will to give everything to his wife. So I mean, he obviously knew something was going to happen, right? So why not give the keys out, or the password for the keys at that point?
Yeah, interesting, eh?
I think the other thing that was weird was the fact that he went to like India, like as he was like sick and starting to decline, like apparently went to India.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sketch surrounding this.
It's like post your wallet address that all this is in, so you can actually verify. That, you know, that suddenly $145 million didn't just walk out of your wallet before you died, or that there actually was $145 million in the wallet.
Yeah.
I just want to point out too, like the level of like lack of knowledge, because like why would you ever store your currencies on an exchange, like cold storage, man?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for people who do a lot of trading, you know, you keep a bank of it there. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Just a real challenge of a thing. So the interesting part though would be that if these coins were bound to, I don't know if it's one wallet or multiple wallets that this person had keys to, but one of the fundamental, you know, properties of cryptocurrency is that when a coin moves from one wallet to another wallet, you can see it. Everyone can see it because the various blockchains that make up these currencies are public. So if the deceased key holder's coins ever move somewhere, that kind of either maybe confirms all the conspiracy theories, right? You'll see the transfer happen. That's why they think.
That's why they want the address that they want to post to, because I don't think they've made that public yet.
Yeah, so people want to be able to watch it and see what's like moving.
Make sure nothing has moved, will not move. Then it's truly dead and gone. Yeah,
well, that's why a lot of people. We're going to crypto tangent for a second. That's why a lot of people think that the original whoever Satoshi Nakamoto was or is dead, because this person owns like billions worth of Bitcoin. And you can see the original wallet address that was part of like the original paper and all the coins sitting in it. But apparently no coin had, or even a fraction of a coin has ever moved from that original wallet. Meaning that either this person is so dedicated to like keeping their secrecy that they have never spent a penny of these billions of dollars, or they're dead. Or they lost their key, which also would be hilarious.
I mean, like Bitcoin's only worth like 2K now, so like.
Yeah, but that address was the first one mining for a while, so its holdings are still worth billions. Yeah, just unreal. There was a theory going around that actually Nakamoto died in the tsunami that hit Japan. There was a big theory around that because some of the materials may have suggested that, but that's just pure speculation that I heard from some folks. No idea if it's true. So the London police, England, by the way, if you didn't know, especially London, has like CCTV cameras friggin' everywhere. So the London cops were like, hey, we're gonna try doing some facial recognition with all the CCTV data to see if any random criminals show up. So we can just, you know, totally Big Brother go and arrest them from closed circuit facial recognition. Turns out, so they ran it and they found one person. So they arrested that one person. They also charged another person. What did they charge that person with? Avoiding the cameras. £90 on the spot fine after trying to avoid the cameras. So like, huge success, that project, huge, massive. So this might kind of, they may have to really pull out some solid justification for why they are going to continue to do this. Otherwise, they're going to pull that program, which hopefully most people in here would support, because I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff, personally.
I also heard that there's a big, I think it was 2017, there's a big issue with like people would like just snatch phones off scooters. Like, they just
Really?
Yeah.
Just like random like snatch and grab phone theft?
Yeah,
Oh.
like one guy would be on a scooter, another guy would be behind and just kind of snatch the phone.
That's terrible.
And they'd be caught on camera and whatnot, and it wouldn't matter because they'd be out of there by London is so congested that it's just
Like you,
doesn't matter.
especially like if you're wearing a hoodie or something like that, like a CCTV camera, there's no way they're gonna track you down, right? Yeah. It's a weird plan. I mean, if you've ever walked around London, you'll see them. The camera, they're everywhere, and it's weird.
So, from a political perspective, though, I have
Uh-oh.
to wonder what kind of competition you're losing when you don't have facial recognition, when you're facing up against something like China, where they're using that social credit
Like
system.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, but that's the thing. It's like inspiring them to like contribute to society, right?
Inspiring or like kind of forcing, because I mean I think we all maybe saw that Black Mirror episode,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like you have a choice but you don't have a choice. Yeah.
But I mean, when you run the numbers, like who's winning, right?
Yeah, maybe that's sure. If we want to go there, we can go there. Like, should your appearance and behavior in society really affect things like your credit ratings and your standing for all kinds of other government services? Like, what if I just want to be a weirdo who stays in my house all the time and never shows up on a camera? I should have that right, shouldn't I? Although, what's her name? Naomi. The maker. What's her Twitter thing is sexy cyborg something or other. Naomi Wu, right? I think it's Wu.
Yeah.
She built an LED mask that you put like around the sides of your face that casts like shadows and different patterns on your face so that you can fool the facial recognition systems in China as you're walking around. Or at least she was sort of demoing it in her house. I don't know if I didn't watch the full video. I don't know if she braved going out in the streets doing that yet. Because the one thing about being like the only person using a technology like that is if you're the only one doing it, you're really easy to find, right? So you need sort of that critical mass of lots of people doing that so that they don't kind of pinpoint you and jump all over you. If you've ever been to a Las Vegas casino, you'll see if one person puts on a mask, security's there like that. But if like 50 people are wearing masks, they kind of start going, okay, maybe there's just a bunch of people having a party. But if there's like one person in a crowd, like you just see the guards swarm out from every angle.
This is starting to sound more and more like V for Vendetta. Everybody, put on your Guy Fawkes mask, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean maybe without like walking around with knives and stuff like that, but yeah, totally.
So she randomly disappears when that happens.
Yeah, no, she's luckily for her, she's like pretty popular now, so hopefully nothing happens because it's a big enough name that people would ask questions. I hope. Anyways, so this bug bounty researcher found a couple of remote code execution vulnerabilities in a couple of Sony websites. He did the right thing, wrote them up, submitted them to Sony's bug bounty program, and he got T-shirts. Meanwhile, you got companies like Facebook handing out 10 grand for really good bug bounties. You got companies paying other monetary amounts, and he got 2 T-shirts. So he basically said, I'm not going to pen test Sony anymore. I'm just going to leave. It's not worth my time. So yeah, if you're going to have a bug bounty, maybe T-shirts are not the way to go. I'm sure he would have even preferred like $30 as opposed to a couple of T-shirts. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about that. Swag doesn't pay for groceries. That's probably the best line in the article. That it kind of makes the point, It's like that exposure thing. Like I can't eat exposure, so pay me for my work. So it's an unfortunate situation. especially Sony, who maybe doesn't have the greatest reputation with security researchers. Does anybody remember when they put like a rootkit on a CD to keep you from trying to pirate like a Celine Dion album or something like that? And it was like breaking computers because it was a poorly written rootkit. Like, they don't have the best track record for being friendly with the security industry. Whoa, why does this happen when
I feel like that person is no longer reporting them, but still maybe hard to search them.
Yeah, well, that, or like maybe they are still searching, but rather than reporting them to Sony, they're selling them on the black market to people who want to break into Sony. Not that that's happened like 100 times by now. Google's out with a new plugin for Chrome. Google, as you know, has scraped all of the world's web pages and has all the information on everybody. So they know if your password has showed up in various places. So their new plugin for your browser is basically going to notify you, hey, by the way, we were scraping, as we do, and we found your password. So you might want to go change that. Cool service. They talked to, or comment from Troy Hunt, who runs Have I Been Pwned. He's like, that's cool, that's good, I support that. So if Troy, who runs that service, thinks it's a good idea, it's probably a good idea. It's creepy, obviously, because Google has all this info, but it's good that they're willing to let you know that they believe that your password may have been compromised. Awesome, good. So maybe get that plugin for Chrome. I will.
Is there a name?
Pardon me?
Is there a name for it?
The plugin? Yeah, it is called Password Checkup Extension. Yeah. So cool. Maybe that'll be a thing. A bunch of researchers for Checkpoint, who usually make firewalls, but they are branching out and offering other services now, did a whole bunch of static code review on the various remote desktop tools and the protocol implementations, and they found they were full of bugs. A lot of them enabling you to get remote codecs on one of the nodes that was talking in the remote desktop session. It was interesting. They basically said that what the problems in a lot of the code were is that the receiving machine wouldn't check the packet length that was being sent to it using the remote desktop protocol. And if you're not checking the length properly, that can lead to things like buffer and heap overflows that can then lead to code execution on the machines. So big deal, because there's some pretty big name tools in here. Like our desktop is the default remote desktop tool in Kali. So yeah, interesting, worth a read. Digging into some of the CVE details from those and stuff. Checkpoint's a pretty intense company. They're based out of Israel, and they do, in addition to this kind of stuff, they have some wild security products. They're the first one that I ever saw that had CPU security in their firewalls. So if you bought a firewall and wanted to reverse engineer one of their products, if you take the case off, there would be the main processor with a big heatsink on it, and then if you took the heatsink off, it was glued onto the processor in a way that if you took it off, it would rip the processor apart. So you couldn't try to reverse the actual chip that was running their stuff, and you couldn't pull the firmware off because the heatsink was bigger than the chip, so you couldn't get in there with wires or soldering irons and stuff. They're really good at that kind of crazy stuff. Neat company. Yeah. Anyways, they found remote desktop stuff. Someone used SIM swapping, which is basically where you social engineer a telco into, swapping my SIM number for yours, so I take over your mobile account. And he did that to then target a whole bunch of people's cryptocurrency wallets to essentially get your two-factor authentication code sent to him or whatever he needed to get into things, and stole a whole bunch of money. But they caught him and sentenced him to 10 years in prison. The Hacker News headline here is a little bit misleading. It's not that SIM swapping necessarily got him the 10 years, it's that the SIM swapping led to theft of approximately $5 million. That probably would have been what bumped the sentence up a little bit. It's probably still in violation of a bunch of US cybercrime law as well, but it's kind of the monetary thing that can probably get you longer sentence time. Yeah. There was someone posted an article in Discord today too about how a bunch of people in Canada are getting hit with SIM swapping attacks, so people calling your telco. And what did they say all you needed was a name and an address, I think, to try to pull off a SIM swap on someone in Canada, which is terrifying. Not great. Not that anybody calls me, so whatever, you swap my SIM line. This is wild. It kind of InfoSec related. I just thought it was cool. So this person that runs a hardware, electronics fab shop in the U.S. was buying parts from China, and they think that the person knew what they were getting was counterfeit stuff, but essentially they would then go and make boards that they would put into military equipment like airplanes and tanks and stuff like that. And supplying fake materials to the military is a crime in the US. So like supplying counterfeit stuff. So they're busted on that count. But what they believe is part of the issue is that there's a lot of electronics recycling where essentially people are like, you know, desoldering parts off of old boards and then either reselling them or like scraping the label off the chip and like etching a new label on the chip to make it look like it was made by a different vendor and then going and selling that. So basically trying to pass off counterfeit chips as somebody else's. And so apparently this was happening. Kind of interesting that we get like low-level hardware fraud like that. It's kind of a neat story. Apparently there was an issue that could lead to remote codecs in LibreOffice, and it got patched, but OpenOffice hasn't quite patched it yet. It had to do with when you're opening one of the open text document formats, and I guess there was like a mouse over command that the open text would respond to, and you could issue instructions based on a mouse over event, and that could lead to code execution. So I don't know, update OpenOffice or LibreOffice if you use it. Yeah, great. This one was interesting. Since I never worked internally at these companies, I didn't really know that, I guess, they develop a lot of in-house apps. So for example, like a lot of Google employees might have iPhones, right? And they would write apps for iOS to do internal Google work and stuff on. And the same is true at like Facebook. A lot of Facebook employees may have iPhones and they would write iPhone apps to do just work and stuff. So apparently these companies had a lot of internal apps that ran on iOS. And what Apple did was pull the digital certs for those companies. They basically just revoked them inside of iOS. So that means that the next time an employee at one of those companies goes to spin up or open their internal app, it would fail the digital certificate validation or the signature check on the app, and it wouldn't launch the app. So basically all of the internal apps that their competition was using basically just all got killed with this cert pull. I mean, sure, if you're running stuff on your competition's hardware, they can do to their hardware whatever they want. Kind of a dick move. It's funny. Citizen Lab, the awesome folks with the sort of HQ in Toronto that do research into all kinds of things that are happening against society in terms of surveillance and privacy issues and stuff like that, believe that they were the target in 2 separate instances of people trying to identify and get information about their various researchers. Citizen Lab tries to conceal or really preserve the privacy of their researchers because some of their research is quite sensitive. And they were contacted by people pretending to be folks who they were not, and they think it may have been a malicious attempt to like expose and dox some other researchers. Just kind of interesting knowing that this stuff actually happens, like the stuff you might read about in a spy novel. It really does go on. And lastly, continuing on a trend that we've seen a lot of this year, another Elasticsearch database was found exposed online. This time, the contents of the database was loans and mortgage information for a lot of people. About 24 million documents for folks in the US found in an online Elasticsearch database. I don't get how like a simple like port block rule for stuff isn't really easy like these days. Like, is there any reason your web application needs anything other than port 443 open? Like, I don't get it. Why does this happen? But yeah. But AWS is secure by default. Like, you have to try to open this up, right?
Just give it to an intern.
Yeah, fair. For those of you about to go out on co-op. Yeah, that was just kind of the topper. So, I'm going to terminate this stream for now, and then we'll have a short break while our speaker gets set up, and then we can turn it around and we'll do that. Cool. Thanks, everybody, for the news.
Thank you.
Hey.